Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to subscribe to the show. Tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, dogs, and cats. Hey, buddy, have you heard about the Chris Voss Show Podcast and thecvpn.com? You should go there and subscribe to all 9 podcasts because it's a community and you want your friends to be listening to the same crap you're listening to or whatever. Anyway, guys, welcome to the show. We certainly appreciate it. We got an incredible book author today. Holy Judas. This guy has written 20 books. 20 books. I'm still trying to write my first book. I can't even catch up, so I won't even try. But that's why we have him on the show, is so we can talk to him and find out all the wonderful knowledge he's compiled over 20 books in his lifetime. So today we have with us John J. Murphy. He's the founder and CEO of Venture Management Consultants Incorporated, is a firm specializing in creating lean, high-performance work environments. As a business consultant, John has worked with some of the world's leading organizations, including ADP, BMW, Chase, the Michigan State Senate, the CIA, and the U.S. Navy. He's the author of 20 books and has trained thousands of people from more than 50 countries. He lives in Palm Beach, Florida. Welcome to the show, John. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Awesome sauce. Kind of looks like you'll have a nice little Florida tan there going too. So,
well, it's been stormy here lately in Palm Beach. It's technically hurricane season.
Oh, that's right, hurricane season. I think you guys
pretty
just have
stormy.
one. So, John, you've written 20 books. Give people a www they can go check you out on the inner tubes, on the interweb.
Sure. It's www.johnjmurphy.org. johnjmurphy.org.
johnjmurphy.org, and then, of course, I'm sure you can find his books on Amazon and booksellers near you. So, John, the book we're going to be talking about today is called Miracle Minded Manager. But before you get into that, let's talk about your origin story, how you grew up, what made you want to be an author, how you became an author, all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, well, I had a couple of teachers back in the day who said I'd never write anything good. And
wow.
So I never really thought of myself as a writer growing up, that's for sure. And even through college, and I got a finance degree at Notre Dame and went into corporate finance in Chicago. And I even had a boss there who said, because I'd have to write up like analysis reports, and he made some sarcastic comment one time to me, like, did you go to Notre Dame High School or Notre Dame University?
Oh, shoot. Wow.
I guess I was a little too creative to write, credit reports and analysis type stuff. So I left that job and I decided that I didn't really want to be in corporate finance anyways. I wanted to be in more human resource type work, people stuff. So I took a big step backwards, actually, a step back in pay, a step back in life, so to speak, but I reinvented myself, which is actually the title of one of my other books, and then found my way into human resource management, worked my way up to an executive position, and then left in 1988 to start my practice after doing what I now teach. So I was a pretty transformational kind of leader, if you want to call it that, in my prior job. And I got a lot of recognition for some of the things that I did around the country. So I just decided to go out and teach. And then people said, well, if you're going to be a consultant, you have to write something. You can't just, So I actually I got a book. I read a book on how to write a book. This was long before, YouTube and Google and things like that so I actually read a book about how to write a book. And then I wrote my first book, which has now been published by 5 different publishers. It was called Pulling Together the Power of Teamwork. Uh-huh. And it's been published in a lot of different formats. I even got a copy of it sent to me recently that's in Vietnamese.
Wow.
So I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends that are book writers, and it's amazing the syndication of international stuff and sometimes the interpretation of the cover art that they use. Like, I have some friends that'll be like, well, okay, that's what you did with the cover art in some, the Philippines or some weird country. But that's awesome sauce. So you've written 20 books and you've come out with this book, Miracle Minded Manager. I'll go ahead and hold it up here for those of you watching on YouTube. That's why you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can see that there, and you can see John J. Murphy's wonderful face here from Florida. But Miracle Minded Manager, it's a good sized book, and I've gotten a chance to peruse it, read some sections of it, and love some things about it. So we talked in the pre-show. You said that this book here, Miracle Minded Manager, took 26 years to be a sequel. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's a story. It's a parable. I find parables are a wonderful way to teach people, because they can relate well to stories. And so, about 30 years ago, I wrote my first book, Pulling Together: The Power of Teamwork. And one of my brothers, he's a professor now at Notre Dame, he said to me, "John, you should write an allegory." And it's like, what's an allegory? I had no idea.
It's a gory alley.
Yeah, right. He said it's like a parable, it's a story. He said, because you tell a lot of interesting stories, and pulling together, you should write the whole book as a story. So I decided then to create this character, Jack Mcdonald. He's at the time, he was a general manager of a big company called TIPCO, which stands for Typical Company. And he's trying to pull people together and get people aligned and really run a healthier business, a leaner business. And he's struggling. He's getting a lot of resistance. So he gets the help of this consultant named Jordan McKay to come in. And you actually see in that book, it's called Agent of Change, Leading a Cultural Revolution. And you see in that book how a leader can pull a team together and really make some cultural change, a real difference in people's hearts and minds. So that spun off to several other allegories and some other different types of books that I wrote over the years. But it occurred to me just a couple of years ago to go back to Jack Mcdonald and tell a story about, he's now been very successful financially. He's got a great life, so to speak, great lifestyle, but he's really struggling with some stress and anxiety. Even though he's now the president of a division of TIPCO, a business unit of TIPCO, and he's got plenty of money. He's married. He's got 2 kids, grown kids now, but he's struggling with his health, his body, his anxiety. So he goes back to Jordan McKay, and he says, "Hey, you helped me change my culture years ago. Can you help me change me?"
Mm-hmm.
I need some life coaching, so to speak. The sequel, by the way, it took 26 years for me to write the Miracle Minded Manager after Agent of Change, but in the actual story, it's only a 3-year difference. So,
okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Terminator, right? Like Terminator 2, Terminator 1. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So you credited this book, the course for accelerating your growth and prosperity and quadrupling business revenues within 2 years. And so you blended the lessons in the Course in Miracles from your modern day training.
I did. Yeah. I'm actually taking a Course in Miracles now for the 4th time. I just repeat it, every few years to, it's a daily mantra for 365 days. So there's a textbook and a teacher's manual as well, but the workbook course is 365 lessons over the course of a year.
Wow.
It's a channeling of Jesus, actually. And so back in the 70s, a medical psychology professor at Columbia University, Dr. Helen Schuckman, started to hear this voice, so to speak, and freaked her out a little bit at first. And by the way, she's agnostic. She's Jewish agnostic scientist, professor. So the last person in the world, so to speak, looking for spiritual guidance and, religious guidance and things like that. Well, she starts to hear this voice. She shares this with her colleague, Dr. Bill Thetford. And he says, well, listen to it. Don't resist it. Listen to it and take notes. Write it down. Whatever it tells you, write it down, and I'll help you decipher it. We'll figure this out. So she did. And, one of the first things she heard then and wrote down was, this is a Course in Miracles. It's a required course. It's not voluntary. Only the time that you take it is voluntary. And then it goes on, and it's just absolutely profound. So I had heard so many people reference it over the years that I read and looked up to. People like Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer,
Hmm.
Deepak Chopra, and Marianne Williamson, for example. She's she's written a lot of books relating to A Course in Miracles. And Dr. David Hawkins is probably the most profound influence on me, the late David Hawkins. But he talked about A Course in Miracles over and over and over again. So I finally decided, you know what, I should probably investigate this. I came home from a road trip in Europe, and sitting on my desk in my pile of mail was an invitation to A Course in Miracles. So I was like,
Wow. There you go.
okay, I get it.
Serendipity.
Yeah, I'll take this course. So I did, and it just truly blew my mind, so to speak.
It was kind of interesting. In the book, you talk about ego and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And Eckhart Tolle, a friend of mine, turned me on to Eckhart Tolle when I was really struggling after having my dog of I think almost 15 years die. And it was a dog I loved completely, and was just it was like losing a child, basically. And I'm single, I don't have kids, and so my dogs have always been my kids, my children, and so when you lose them, you're just kind of like, oh, this sucks. And you don't have anything else to turn to because you don't have children, so you're just like, wow, okay,
Right.
well that 16 years is gone. But I was really struggling with it and a few other demons, and a friend of mine turned me on to Eckhart Tolle's book and talking about the ego and the ego mind and stuff. And you reference that in your book. You've got a chapter in here talking about, in fact, part one is the ego thought system. And you go into detail, but that saved my life. It literally saved my life. I was at the brink, and it saved my life. But you talk about that in your book, in the first section of it. And so I really recommend people really understand the ego thought system and stuff, because it's amazing how our brains sometimes can be our own worst enemies.
Sure. Well, over 95% of our daily lives is run by the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. The conscious mind is the will. The conscious mind is creative. And because it is, it's usually not present. It's thinking about things you got to do tomorrow or next month or next year, or it's thinking about something that happened yesterday or last week. The conscious mind, I've seen research that says on average people aren't present for more than 11 seconds at a time. This is why people struggle with things like meditation and being present. Eckhart Tolle talks all about, one of his books, The Power of Now. Be here, be now, be awake, be aware, and don't let your mind wander, all over the place. In the Buddhist tradition, they call that like monkey brain, monkey chatter. You've got all this inner dialogue.
I had a couple monkeys running around. I think it was a barrel of monkeys in my head.
Yeah.
I still do, actually, but I've had to keep going back to his Power of Now book and get back to basics sometimes. But so you talk about this, the Course in Miracles. If people are familiar with that, what are some other aspects in this book that we can take a look at doing? I know there's a root cause of all problems that I found that was pretty interesting, where you talk about managing behavior, results, attitude, lead, and assumptions and stuff.
Yeah. Well, the root cause to every problem on the planet is called ignorance. It's true. We don't know anything.
It's too true.
We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So we walk around the planet with perception, not knowledge. There's a huge difference. So A Course in Miracles teaches the difference.
Yeah.
From perception to knowledge. So from falsehood to truth, to put it in David Hawkins' words. There's a chapter in the book called Shift Happens. And so the shift is the shift out of the ego thought system. Think of that as a box outside the box, a paradigm, a belief system. A shift out of that box entirely into a completely different thought system. You cannot be in both thought systems at the same time. Almost everybody on the planet is in the ego thought system. That's called human nature. We think we're actually human, and we have spiritual experiences from time to time when it's just the opposite. We're actually all spiritual beings who have a temporary human existence. We lived before we were born, and we'll live that long after we're born. Life is cyclical, not linear. Everything is cyclical, like day and night, the seasons, the planets. Everything is cyclical and round, so to speak. But we're not trained that way. We're trained to think linearly, beginning, middle, end, birth, life, death. That's the ego thought system. The ego thought system is also the root cause to all grief, all guilt, all shame, all apathy, all despair, all desperation, all depression, all anger, all lust, all pride, all jealousy, all greed. All of those reactions are from the ego thought system. And then we have all these strategies, go to the gym or learn to meditate or do yoga, take a pill, have a beer. We have all these strategies to cope with stress, to manage stress. Why not delete it? So the shift is not trying to manage all this stuff and cope with it. It's to completely delete it, like you delete viruses on a computer. Delete, delete, delete. When you delete all the baggage you have in your subconscious mind, everything weighing you down, you're free. Everything is then free. So the ego thought system is all of those feelings. And David Hawkins had some brilliant, he said something called the map of consciousness. He could calibrate, using applied kinesiology, the energetic frequencies of all those different emotions, so to speak, all those feelings. So anger has a certain frequency to it. Pride has a certain frequency to it. Guilt has a certain frequency to it. The lowest of all those frequencies is actually shame, followed then right by guilt, then by apathy, then by grief. And you go up this scale, you finally get all the way up to anger and then pride. Those are all still inside the ego box. And the way out of the box is called courage. It takes courage to let go of all that baggage, all those beliefs that you have buried in your subconscious mind, and then be free. And up above courage, you get into frequencies of joy and bliss and unconditional love and enlightenment, different levels of enlightenment, so to speak. So that's the map of consciousness. I say, why manage problems inside a box when it's the box that's the problem? So we've got all these things that we're doing inside the ego box. Just get out of it. Learn how to let it go. I like to say, let go and let flow. When you let go of everything weighing you down and getting in your way, you witness miracles all the time. It's incredible. We're living miracles. You've got 50 plus trillion cells in your body that somehow know what to do, and some know how to get along and heal. You cut yourself, it naturally heals. Your body is intended to be healthy and strong, but we do all kinds of things to self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. So the book, Jack Mcdonald goes through all of this, and he learns some interesting release techniques, like emotional freedom technique, which is meridian tapping. It's been featured on Dr. Oz. Nick Ortner, who's a New York Times best-selling author. Nick is the one who actually taught me EFT like 10 years ago. It's a release technique, and it's a simple way to let go of programming that's in your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is running your life. It cannot be in the future or the past. It can only be present, and it can only replay history. It's not creative. It's just replay. It's your autopilot, so to speak. And if you want to put this in perspective, Chris, the conscious mind, the will, the creative mind, on average can process 40 bits of data per second, 40 bits of data per second. The subconscious mind, 40 million bits of data per second. It's no contest. So the secret to habit change isn't willing to make a change. I will stop eating this unhealthy stuff. I will start exercising. I will go to whatever. I will. And the subconscious mind's going, no, you won't. You tried that last year.
We're gonna do what you've taught us to do all these years. We're gonna keep you on the track.
Yeah. So the idea is to get into the subconscious programming and delete these limiting beliefs, these things weighing you down, fears and phobias and anxieties and stress, and just delete. And that's what you learn in the book through Jack Mcdonald.
That's awesome, Sauce, man. You just gave me a giant soundbite right there of just the most concentrated core of ego-minded issues and mental things that people have. I implore everyone to take and check this out and to learn from it. And if you haven't gotten into the ego mind and some of these different things, it will change your life if you open up your mind and let it realize that we all have this madman ego mind that just beats us all day long. It just bangs us over the head with our past history and mistakes we've made and injuries we've made to other people, and it constantly berates us of when you remember that one time you did that, and you're like, that was like 25 years ago, and it lives in this world where it's trying to stay alive and keep all this stuff going, because that's how it thinks it's got to be around, if I understand it correctly. And the problem is you can't change the past. And then people, does the same with the future, worrying about the future. And really the only thing you can do is be present. And that was one of the biggest problems I was having at one time with my dogs. My one dog's had cancer for about 1.5 years. And my problem was I was having trouble just being present when she was around. I'm like, it became very obvious that this was a limited resource, even more so with the cancer, and that every day was a brick of gold that we could get. And I'm like, somehow I have to maximize this, but somehow I'm still losing every day. I'm looking at other things, worried about other things. And even when she was beside me and I'd be petting her and giving her treats or whatever, I would still be worrying about like 50 million other things. And I would be like, this person, we don't know if is going to be here tomorrow. I mean, my dog. So I was like, I'm not here. And I just became aware of the fact that I was in other places, and I couldn't focus and everything else. And so dealing with the ego mind and all this stuff that you described earlier really made me realize that I needed to take a different course. And so, so you do this as an allegory. You tell the story of this gentleman. He goes through his processes. There's several different. You got a lot of great reviews on this book too, as well. I noticed Dennis Waitley, Dr. Ken Blanchard, Richard DeVos, and there's a whole bunch of them in the book. Actually, I know the names though of Dennis Waitley. I was a big fan of Dr. Dennis Waitley when I was growing up, and read a lot of his books.
We've been on stage together, and Dennis and I have been on stage together. He's a terrific person.
Yeah, I remember, this is how old I am. I'm probably going to date myself, but the Nightingale Conant, remember those tape series you used to be able to subscribe to, and Dennis Waitley would be in them.
Psychology of Winning. That was his. Yeah. He sold over 100 million copies of that.
I was fortunate enough that my father back in the day had old records from the Selling Institute, I think it was, and then he had old records from Earl Nightingale, and so I got his records, and I was like, wow, man, this is pretty interesting stuff. And I still have them to this day, so it's pretty cool. But what else on this book do we need to know about? What other things are important for us to go ahead and go order this on Amazon?
Well, one thing is important is that you can't be in both thought systems at the same time. You're either in the fear-based dualistic ego thought system, which is right, wrong, good, bad, us, them, win, lose. Everything's duality. So the ego thinks in terms of division and separation, Democrat, Republican, all that kind of stuff, and puts up boundaries. And the ego is also fear-based, so it's always fueling people with anxiety and stress and things like that. And the spirit, the faith-based system, you can't have fear and faith at the same time. If you're afraid, it's because you have no true faith. If you have true faith, you're not afraid of anything. They're completely different thought systems. The ego sees love from a very different perspective than the faith, the spirit system. The ego sees love as temporary. I fell in love with somebody. I love my car. I love my house, but it's all about temporary and the relationships that are temporary. Spirit doesn't see love that way at all. I call it capital L love versus small l love. In the book, capital L love is unconditional. It's like your dog. Your dog loves you absolutely no matter what you do.
Yeah.
It's just pure forgiving love. And see, the ego thinks of forgiveness in a different way. The ego says, I was right and you were wrong, but I forgive you. That's condemnation. That's not forgiveness.
I forgive you.
That's condemnation.
Yeah.
it's attack and defend. The ego is all about attack and defend, and who's right and who's wrong, and jealousy. It's all of those human experiences and emotions. When you make the shift that happens, and you step out of that entire thought system, it's like a reprogramming, if you will. And that's what A Course in Miracles does. It's a reprogramming of the mind. And you step out of the ego box, that person that used to annoy you doesn't annoy you anymore. Now you have compassion for that person, and you feel that they're just calling for love. That situation that used to frustrate you, it doesn't frustrate you anymore. You actually live in peace rather than waiting to die in peace. Rest in peace is what we say when people die. Well, why not live in peace? You know, and then the ego says, well, how can I be at peace with all this violence going on around the world? Until all the violence and all the wars stop and everything else happens, then I'll be at peace. No, you won't. The grass is always greener is another ego statement. You know, I'll be happy someday when I have more money, or when I have a nicer home, or when I have this. The ego's always saying, someday I'll be happy. Why not be happy right now? So great gratitude is a huge shortcut out of the ego box. The ego doesn't understand gratitude. It's never satisfied. Seek and you will not find. The ego is always searching for something bigger, something more. Oh, you got a master's degree. When are you going to get a PhD? Oh, you know, you got yourself a BMW. When are you going to get a Ferrari? The ego just doesn't shut up. And so when you let go of that programming, you appreciate what you have, what you are, the relationships you have. You live in gratitude, and it's a wonderful place to be.
That's awesome. I mean, that's an incredible lesson that most people should take and learn. It was amazing to me when I got into the ego theories and ego books and stuff, just learning about what was going on, and then starting to listen to that voice and starting to discern between my voice and the ego's voice, and realizing those are two different things. And that guy is a jerk. I don't like him very much. And the other 8 voices that, you know, scream kill, kill, kill all the time. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, learning to listen to his voice, and I keep having to go back, and I really should put a tag up on my computer or something every day that says, hey man, you know, stay present, listen to the thing, because you find yourself just getting browbeaten again and off topic, and you get to the end of your day and go, I didn't get anything done today that I wanted to get done, things that were important to me. Sometimes I think that we're tuning out that ego mind that's berating us, that's beating us, that's punishing us. I think video games or different things that we do, like you mentioned before, people turn to alcohol, food, different aversions that end up being self-destructive. And I think sometimes, I know for a lot of years, I abused alcohol. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I definitely abused it, just to get that mind to leave me alone, to get it to shut up. And fortunately, it would usually put me in creative states, so I could write piano music, or I could play guitar, or I could just do anything, but just not having to listen to that freaking voice up my butt all the time was what I was trying to do. And unfortunately, I spent way too many years doing that. But I was trying to just get away from that voice that was just haunting me and bugging me. And even to this day, I still find myself, you know, going and doing stuff like video games where I go to tune out, and I don't realize that what I'm trying to tune out is that idiot in my head who's just bugging the crap out of me. I'm trying to get him to leave me alone. And it's amazing how much of our world is in turmoil, like you mentioned earlier, and wars and different things, people struggling to, you know, I mean, I grew up poor and then I got rich, and I always thought that would solve all my problems. I'm like, this will solve, if I get rich, this will solve everything. I'll be a complete, you know, and a lot of people have this sort of thing that rich people, Hollywood stars, people that are ultra successful, like they've perfected their human being to a point where at all levels they are maximized and self-actualized, when in reality they're not. If anything, they just have that one tube filled and the rest of them are empty, or you know, semi-full. And so you realize that and I've met people that, they don't feel they're worthy until they make $3 million a year, $10 million a year, and then they're still unhappy.
Mm.
And, I had the same sort of thing. Everyone hated me in my life even more when I was rich. I could never get any girlfriend happy. I could never, all my business partners hated me. I'm like, I made all this money for you and you hate me. And it just became more and more. And I was like, is this as good as it's supposed to be? And
Mm.
really the problem the whole time was me and what was going on in my head. And I could never be happy the way I was built back then. I can never
Mm.
be happy. It's taken me a lot of years to figure out how to be happy. And so it's really important people read these books and learn and experience them, because once you can disseminate that voice in your head, the madman, I call him, from my creative voice, my present voice, it really makes a difference. And being able to be present is just so wonderful, where I can sit and I can go play with my dogs. That's the one thing I don't do enough in life, is go play with my dogs. Just go out in the yard. Because I
Mm.
always go, okay, well, we got to do this deadline and we're trying to get this done and this out. And I got this appointment. My dog's like, come play with me. And, going out and playing with them and just enjoying the beauty of nature. And I'll be like, hey, wow, the sun's out here. This is a really beautiful place. I should come out here more often.
Yeah, well, you just said the magic word, which is nature. Nature is so healthy and healing to get out. Like when I'm here in Palm Beach, I live here half the year. When I'm here, I go out at night, especially this time of year. May and June are turtle months. So the giant sea turtles come up right up on the beach
Oh, wow.
and lay their eggs. And it's just so magical, so to speak, to sit out there. You have to be very quiet, no lights, no phones, no video games, nothing like that.
Wow.
Just sit out there and watch these awesome creatures come up. And it's amazing just to think about. I'm told, I'm not an expert in turtles, but I'm told that they come back to the same place that they were born to lay their eggs. They swim around for thousands and thousands of miles and, over a
Wow.
lifetime. But when they come back to lay eggs, they come back to where they were born, which is pretty awesome, actually.
It's amazing they have the bearing, that ability to come back to
Yeah.
home. I have huskies. They have no homing ability. They just, when they escape, they just run for miles and then they're
Yeah.
stuck. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. One of the things I used to love in California was being able to go down on the beach and sit there and watch the sunset. And you sit there and you listen to the lapping of the waves. You watch the sand coming in and off the beach. And you watch the sunset and you realize all that stuff has been here for eons.
Mhm.
And I used to go down there when I used to be, knee deep in my problems and just to kind of get away. And I go down there and I realize that my problems were just a hill of beans compared to the eons of time, and the waves that lapped upon that shore just didn't amount to anything. And it would give me some perspective where I just go, hey, you know what? Some of this stuff is just, that's weighing on me, all my problems and stuff. This doesn't mean anything really in the long run of even my life. And so it would give me perspective. And I think things like that are really important in nature to give us that perspective of that the world is bigger than, what's inside of our stupid little heads sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, no question.
No question. So it's a great book. You've written 19 other books. And what else can you tell us more about Miracle Minded Manager?
Well, I told you before the show that I woke up this morning to a nice note from one of my publicists. And she said, John, Miracle Minded Manager won silver in the COVR Cover Awards, which is a pretty big deal. COVR stands for the Coalition of Visionary Resources. And so this book was nominated a couple of months ago, and people vote. So I didn't get the gold for some reason. I don't know why, but
That's next year. Good
I
job,
got
John. That's
I got the
awesome. Hey,
silver.
the
So
silver is good.
yeah,
Second is good. Beats
yeah.
being
So
third.
yeah, this is my second award-winning book. I wrote a book years ago called Beyond Doubt: 4 Steps to Inner Peace that won Best Inspirational Book of 2010 by a big review, all books review out of Toronto, Canada. So that was a wonderful thing to wake up to as well.
And this is pretty awesome. It's based on 35 years of your real life experience as a business consultant. Um, it's a fictional story that offers insightful lessons on how to apply the spiritual lessons of the Course in Miracles and the law of attraction to everyday challenges. Relatable, compelling, and entertaining, Miracle Minded Manager illustrates the very essence of miracles, a transformational shift in thinking. You can check this out on Amazon where books are sold. Um, this is pretty cool. People are going to need a lot more of this in what we're going through right now with COVID-19. We're in we're entering a very depressionary stage of finance, of human toll, whether it's death, sickness, et cetera, et cetera. People that are out of work, people that are struggling with family loss, et cetera, financial loss, job loss. It's going to be a pretty tough couple of years. So I'd highly recommend people grab these books and read them, get focused. It's a great way to, one of my favorite things that I always remember, and I forget the name of I always forget his name. I think it's John Knowlton. That can't be right, but it's the basketball coach who was the great basketball coach, and
John Wooden.
John Wooden. John Wooden.
Yeah.
I don't know why 20 years I have problems with his name, John Wooden, and he always did the back to the basics thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the real core of his teaching. I think he had like a pyramid of principles or something, if I recall rightly. But the core of it was back to basics. And he would have these, he'd have these basketball players, and they'd be like, "Hey, watch this 3-foot, shot from outside the court, shot, and, these crazy layups that they do that are really beautiful." And John would be like, "Hey, that's really great that you can do that, but I want you to master the basics. Get back to basics. Let me see you shoot from the free throw line. Let me see you do I think we used to call it as the kids the horse, where you go around the circle and shoot from all the major points." Yep. And those aspects are important when you really think about it. When you see people, I think Shaq was one of the infamous people who had trouble at the free throw line, if I recall rightly. And you're just like this great player, but you can't do this simple free throw thing. Like, what's going on there, buddy? But he was a great player. And so this getting back to basics is really important. And so if you're going through a struggling time right now, or you do go through a struggling time, if you hear this in the next couple of years or any time in your life, really, there's all sorts of challenges we have with a relationship, but getting control of your own head, getting present is so impactful in changing your life and getting control of your life and feeling in control of your life and not being controlled by fear. I just felt like a driven slave to my brain. Like someone was just whipping me like a horse across a prairie or a desert, and just whipping me constantly. And I'd just be carrying the load of the cart and just going, "Oh gosh," and just constantly feeling like I was just at the mercy of this madman. And that's kind of how I hit rock bottom mentally. Was I just felt like I needed to kill this person to end the viciousness of what was going on. And people don't realize a lot of people that commit suicide or deal with suicide issues, they reach that point, and you have to really wonder, what is it? You reach that point where you're willing to destroy yourself, but when you're driven that crazy and that mad by the madman, the ego system, you just feel like that's the only way that's out for you, because you're like, until I can get this guy to shut up, he'll never leave me alone. But being able to deal with books like what you've written, talking about the ego mind and getting control back of your life and realizing, okay, there's me, I'm still here. And I think that was really important to discover, was that I was still here. And that it was the madman that was the problem. Until people kind of get that discernment, you think it's you, and so you think you're the problem.
Yeah, well, but you also think that somebody else is the problem. In other words, this person annoys me, this person bothers me, this situation bothers me, this virus, I'm worried about this virus. When we attach our happiness to anything external and out of our control, not only are we in the ego box, but we're in the misery box, because we've just disempowered ourselves to something external. It's never the virus that scares you. It's never the other person that makes you mad. It's your mind that scares you. It's your mind that makes you mad. And it's the only thing you have any true control over. So when you learn to be mindful and you know that it's not the other person, it's your image of the other person. It's your duality. It's that person's wrong and I'm right. The ego just doesn't get happiness. It just doesn't get it. And so we go through life just kicking the dirt and, and I'll get even and revengeful and that's where jealousy and all those different human reactions come in, but it's all from the mind. When we're present, truly present, we cannot be afraid. Fear is a projection of the mind that something's going to go wrong in the future. It could be 1 second from now or 10 minutes from now or 10 years from now. But when we project that something's going to go wrong in the future, it triggers our hormonal system, our stress hormones, our cortisol, our adrenaline. It triggers the human body to prepare for fight or flight. It's natural, but it's all because of something we think might happen in the future. It's an assumption. So if we're going to assume anything, why do we assume the negative? Why don't we assume we're going to hit a home run when we step up to the plate? Yeah. Why don't we assume we're going to, nail a speech that we're about to give, or an interview that we're about to take, or an exam that we're about to take? Why don't we assume we're going to nail it and then work toward that rather than fear it? It's one or the other.
Yeah, and it's interesting how people use it as a self-prophecy sort of thing. Like, I had one girlfriend years ago that I was engaged to, and then I also saw this with a friend of mine who married a woman who had been married, I think, 4 times before. I can't remember if he was the 4th or the 5th. And both of these women were fine women at their core, I'm sure. But one of the drivers they had was they would always say, every man I'm with cheats on me. So it's just a matter of time until you cheat on me. And that had happened, of course, to the woman who'd been through 4 marriages. She'd eventually berated them to the point of cheating. And it also happened in my relationship with the woman where I was constantly being accused of cheating. One night I stayed out with a friend until about 4 a.m. I was standing in front of his business. We were, talking business, and we were really, doing business stuff. And she was like, you cheated on me. It just, every little thing would be, you're going to cheat on me. And finally, honestly, it got to a point where I was so beaten up in my brain that I was like, I should just go cheat, because I'm already accused of it all the time. It just made me want to go to somebody else, and it drove me to go to somebody else. And eventually I did actually start dating. I didn't fully cheat, I guess you'd say, but some people might call it cheating. You can call it what you want, but I literally she beat me down to the point where I was just ready to, I started dating other people. And finally once I started dating other people, I'm like, okay, I'm out, I'm done. 'Cause obviously I am going to cheat eventually the way I'm going. But you've pushed me to this point. And then of course she was like, aha, I got you. You're a cheater. You're just like all my other boyfriends. And I'm like, you kind of push this to the thing. And that of course would happen with my friend who was married. Like, he couldn't wear if he went anywhere, he had to wear sunglasses, because if she caught him doing that, guy side eye that we do, where we check stuff out, we check on the merchandise, we're guys. It's what we do. You can't even help it, really. You just put a nice set of bosom in front of me. We go out, the fountain of life there. We remember that from a child. That's wonderful. We're just pre-programmed to do that. And so if she saw any side eye, if she saw him talking on his phone to a coworker, and nowadays, you have to talk to your coworkers. It became, oh, you're cheating. And just like, you just beat down. And so it's interesting. It's kind of an example of how people can use this self-prophecy of the ego mind, and then they enact it and make it happen, so that they can just self-fulfilled prophecy, that stuff. It's crazy sometimes.
Right. Well, that self-fulfilling prophecy is also very closely related with what's known today as law of attraction. You referenced that just briefly before. In the book, I go into the law of attraction quite a bit. But what's interesting about the law of attraction is that it's all about vibrational energy. It's not just, hey, if I think about something and I want it, I'll get it. I'll attract it. It's that we're constantly putting out a vibe. All right. Everything's vibrational. You might not think that the wall is empty space, but it's 99.9% empty space. The wall, so is your hand. Now you hit the wall with your hand, you're like, there's no way that it's 99.9% empty space, but any good physicist will tell you that it is. Everything is vibrational. And so we as humans are putting out a vibe, and it's coming out of the heart chakra, the heart center. There's a Heart Math Institute in California has a fantastic software and techniques, meditation techniques to change your vibe, but the software actually measures it. I have it on my laptop, and so I can hook a person up to it, teach them a meditation technique, and you can actually track the shift in their vibe. What happens then is that you attract a like vibe back to you. Like attracts like. So misery loves company. So people walk around the planet miserable and angry and jealous and looking for someone to cheat, so to speak. In your example, they're going to find it.
Yeah.
They're going to attract that into their life. That's the law of attraction. But when you change the dial, the one thing you do have control over, it's like changing the radio dial. I'm going to tune into joy. I'm going to tune into gratitude. I'm going to tune into forgiveness. And the ego, with forgiveness, the ego's like, well, maybe I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget. Spirit says forgive
a few of those.
and forget. Because forgetting is letting it go. If you don't forget it, you're still hanging on to some misery from years ago. You're carrying it around with you. Forgive and forget. Let it go. And when you let things go like that vibrationally, you start attracting amazing things into your life, including money. Money is named currency for a reason. It's flow. It's energy. And so when you get into a good flow, you're healthier, you're wealthier, you're happier, you're much better relationships. And it's not because you're working hard at it. It's more like you're allowing it. And so, I like to say that a flower doesn't work hard to grow and blossom. It does it because it's supposed to. It's its essence. We have an essence as human beings. Our essence is to give whatever gift we've been given away. That's our purpose in life. If we have a great voice and we can sing, give it away. You might, that's going to bring you a lot of currency as well. I'm not saying you give it away for free, so to speak.
There you go.
But, if you've got a creative skill, give it away. And so when we're in that mode of giving and forgiving, and it's to benefit the world, not just ourselves. I call it weopic vision versus meopic. Meopic is what's in it for me. Weopic is what's in it for we. What can I do with my gift to help improve things in this world? And every one of us can do that. And when we get into that mode, Chris, shift happens.
Yeah. I love that. I love that analogy that you just provided, the thinking it from that way. In my darkest moments, in my moments of hitting kind of a bottom in some fashion or another, some part of my life, I found that just giving back is one of the most important things to do. I remember one time I was down to just the last few dollars. I was waiting for some money to come in from our businesses, and for some reason we were, people hadn't sent their checks and everything. And I was really struggling, and I was down to like, I don't know, my last $25 or $35 or something. And I bumped into a guy who had a cart beside a 7-Eleven. And what kind of impacted me is I came around the corner. He was a very nice gentleman, and he was reading the paper, which you don't see a lot of homeless people reading the paper, which kind of struck me. And there was something that moved me, and I was like, you should give this guy some money. And I gave him, like, I don't know, half of the cash I had on me. And it was just one of those moments where I realized, you know what, I'm going to I'm already broke. I'm just going to give. Because, like you say, you give, sometimes the most important times to give and freely give is when you have almost nothing left to give.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave him half of the cash I had on me. And I don't know, I just felt implored. I was like, this guy clearly is intelligent. He's reading, he's reading the
Yeah.
paper. But he's probably had some hard times like I have. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I should give him some money because I might be, sharing that paper with him soon or something. I don't know. But no, it was really about giving. And the next day, just like money came in. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that was like really powerful. And you can say what you want, but I there's been so many moments in my lifetime where I'll hit bottom and I'll be like, you know what? I need to go just do some things for karma and give.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you have to give at that point sometimes. So you try and lift people up, you try and give things. I remember when COVID-19 started, it was pretty dark for me, depressive wise, because I mean, overnight I lost like $40,000 in
Mm-hmm.
gigs and different things. And I mean, it was just an instant kill of guaranteed money, just like boom, done, over. And then of course I had to watch the rest of it, disappear for the rest of this year. And it's a question of when it will stop. But given that, I have my health. So, and I still have my relatives around me that I love, and I don't want to lose this virus. So that's the most important thing to me. And it kind of brought that back. But I remember being really despondent and in a dark place and just lost in the whole, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? And one of my friends, my good friend Robert Scoble, he wrote on a Facebook post. He goes, and it was really simple. He goes, this is what you do when we go through this. He goes, number one, be a lifter. And number two, if you can't lift, go find a lifter. And that was all he wrote on Facebook. And that changed my world. And then I sat down because I couldn't figure out even how to do a podcast because I was just like, I don't know what the fuck to tell anybody right now. And then I realized I need to lift people up, and I didn't know how to do it. And so I started sitting down and going, okay, how can I lift people up? How can I be a lifter? Because I got to be a lifter because I can't do anything else. And so that's what I started doing. I started going on our podcast and giving people resources and ideas and concept. And then I realized that I'd gone through the 2008 crisis, and 2008, it wiped out a lot of my businesses. The mortgage crisis, it wiped out everything, and my whole empire was wiped out. And I had to reinvent myself. And I started realizing that I had the skills from that experience to redo them. And I survived and I lived, and I might have gotten into a better place with it. And so, going through that experience. So yeah, hitting that bottom and going, okay, I've got to go out and give, and I got to be a lifter, even though, fake it till you make it sort of thing. And that helped me, helped a lot of other people. And I got through it. And fortunately now I'm become hopefully a good lifter.
Well, if you look at some of the most enlightened people on the planet now and in the past, the lights went on when they were often at their darkest moment, because it takes a certain degree of suffering for a soul to let go of the ego. Remember, I said it was courage. You have to have the courage to let go of all of that baggage weighing you down, that whole thought system. You have to have faith to step forward into a world of ambiguity and uncertainty. You've got to have courage. It's kind of like I was a quarterback in my younger days, walking up to the line of scrimmage. You have a play called, you have goals, you have a strategy. It's part of a game plan. You've been practicing all week. But the truth is, when that ball's snapped, you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to improvise.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get creative. But you don't walk up to the line of scrimmage afraid.
Yeah.
That's not a recipe for success. You walk up to the line of scrimmage with faith and poise and grace and confidence. That takes courage. And when you find the courage, and often you find it through suffering and pain. When you were telling your story, you reminded me of about 11 years ago. I was going through a super dark moment in my life. It was that 2008-2009 recession. I lost pretty much everything. I lost my wife. She filed for divorce. I didn't want that. And we were married for 26 years, 4 kids. And I was basically broke and somewhat homeless, so to speak. But I found myself in a little apartment, and one night, one of my sisters called. She said, "What are you up to? What are you doing?" And I was still going through the divorce, Chris. So I had papers stacked all over the living room. I didn't have any furniture. I was actually sleeping on the
You're
floor.
just sitting on the paper.
So, but she said, "What are you doing?" And the first thing that came out of my mouth is exactly what I was doing, and that was, "I'm dancing." She said, "You're dancing? Who are you dancing with?" I said, "Just me." Oh, she said, "Oh, I wish I could do that." I said, "Well, you can. You just turn on some music, maybe you light a couple of candles, and you dance."
Yeah.
So what I was doing, Chris, is I was changing the channel. I was changing the dial. I wasn't going to feel sorry for myself. I wasn't going to be all angry and I'll get even. And, I changed the dial. And, music is obviously frequencies.
Oh, definitely.
Frequencies. So I went from a dark, ego, worried, scared, angry, jealous vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And all that would have done is attract more trouble into my life. I changed the vibe to one of peace and forgiveness and gratitude. And guess what? I took my wife down to the courtroom. I drove her. We got divorced. I didn't even have a lawyer. She had a pretty mean lawyer, but I didn't even get one. Drove her down. I took her out for lunch afterwards.
Wow.
So that's a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been so ugly.
Yeah.
But I chose not to play that game, not to play that ego game.
Yeah.
And this is another way. And at the time I was taking a course in miracles for the first time. And I was also writing the book Beyond Doubt, 4 Steps to Inner Peace, which references A Course in Miracles quite a while. And that was, again, an award-winning book. And it was actually a book that I channeled, most of it in a little hotel room in France, outside Lyon, France. I hadn't written a book in 9 years because in the year 2000, I was halfway through a book when my father got really sick and ended up passing.
I'm sorry.
And I just, halfway through that book, I just left it. I never went back. I don't even remember what it was about. I just ditched it. And then for 9 years, I never wrote another thing. I just did my business consulting and gave speeches and things like that. And I was over in Lyon, France, and on a Saturday morning, I woke up and there was I'll call it a presence in my room commanding me to start writing again. And I was like, no, I don't know what to write. I don't want to start something I won't finish. I already did that. I just, I'd rather just go for a walk. Thank you very much. And this presence said, no, you're going to write, and I'm going to tell you what to write. I wrote all weekend long, and that book went on to be awarded most inspirational book of 2010. But here's the point. That book, the 4 steps to inner peace, let be, let go, let see, let flow, those 4 steps freed me from the ego box. They freed me from the ego box to the point where then when my wife, a short time after that, filed for divorce, like I said, I pretty much ended up in bankruptcy. The book, it saved me, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And since that time, my life has been truly miraculous.
That's awesome. I mean, sometimes we have to lose everything to find ourselves again, and that's really what I found in losing my businesses and losing. I thought all these things were Chris Voss, my gold watches, my BMWs, my multiple places. I had houses, and I thought all that was my identity, Mm-hmm. And I remember watching Fight Club, and they said, the things you own end up owning you, mm-hmm. And losing all of it made me realize that the person who'd built all that stuff, who designed it, who'd innovated it, everything that I'd built from growing up poor was still me. It was me that had done that. I had done that. And so I still had that power. I still had that innovative knowledge and that ability to rebuild it all. I just had to do it. Mm-hmm. And then I had to realize that I was my most precious resource. It wasn't all that crap, all those mm-hmm. assets and stuff. And so then I realized that it was me. And I've been going through that same realization. I didn't have to lose everything. I mean, I just lost a bunch of money that technically wasn't in the bank yet. But knowing that I still have that resource that like, okay, well, we got to get through this. And once we get through this, we'll be back to normal and money and blah, 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 blah. We've just got to get through the thing. And knowing that I survived the 2008 crisis really brought me a lot of life lessons that I brought into the podcast that I tried to use to be a lifter, to go, hey, you know what, guys? I want you to know I've been through this before. Here's what happened to me. And I started thinking about some of the tools and techniques that I used to dig out of that hole in 2008 and to reinvent myself and become somebody new. And it was pretty amazing for me, because then I just woke and I went, okay, we've done this before. We've survived this before. What's an old line? That which does not kill you makes you stronger. Because you realize that, well, I survived that crap. Let's go get in some other trouble. So awesome sauce. John, it's been great to have you on the podcast. This has been just a resource rich conversation that you've had on your end. I've just loved some of the different sound bites that you've given me of really detailed ways to change your life, how the ego mind happens, everything else. I implore everyone to go check out the book Miracle Minded Manager by John J. Murphy, a modern day parable at how to apply A Course in Miracles in business. You should probably check out his 20 other books, or 19 other books, I should say, and check those out as well, because definitely he's a great mind. We should have you on more to talk about some of your other books. John, where can people go to see you on the interwebs?
Well, my webpage is johnjmurphy.org, johnjmurphy.org. I'm also on LinkedIn. I think it's John J. Murphy Mystic. On Facebook, it's author John J. Murphy. There's obviously more than one John Murphy in the world. Twitter is Sage Leader. And Instagram is JJMurphy13. So
all right, guys.
If you go to my webpage, and my YouTube channel too. I've got a YouTube channel, Chris, with over 200 video clips, like self-help type clips on all kinds of interesting stuff. So, people can get a lot of, free help on YouTube by going to my channel.
That's awesome. I'm going to actually check that out, because we've got such a great video from you today, and video clips really help. Like I used to go watch a lot of Eckhart Tolle stuff. One of the things that's really great about Eckhart Tolle is, and I'll have to watch your videos to see if they're similar, but that manner that he delivers in, that soft, peaceful tone, like, if Anthony Robbins, I love Anthony Robbins, but he talks to that sort of tone, which is great, and sometimes it's cool. But if you want inner peace, like Anthony Robbins might not be the inner peace voice. You can listen to his stuff, and then after you can like go, okay, well, let's have some inner peace. But him or Gary Vaynerchuk, they're talking 500 miles an hour. You're just like, I don't think I'm going to find inner peace listening to that guy. But those are real important, and videos are a great way to, I don't know, for me, I just kind of emulate and capture more of the message of what an author like yourself is trying to tell me through the YouTube videos, because you just kind of capture the essence. You can hear in their voice and how they give it off. So everyone check that out. Miracle Minded Manager. I'll hold the book again for those that are watching on video. Check it out. It's got a beautiful coffee mug on the front. In fact, I could go use some. I love coffee. But be sure to check it out, folks. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. Refer the show to your friends, neighbors, relatives. Give us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that bell notification, youtube.com/Chris Voss. You can go to the CVPN or Chris Voss Podcast Network and do that. If you can, go ahead and give a recommendation, 5-star recommendation to the show on iTunes. We certainly appreciate it. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.